Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
Trump expels 60 Russian intelligence officers. President Donald Trump will expel 60 Russian intelligence officers and order the Russian government to close its consulate in Seattle, the administration announced Monday morning, as a retaliatory measure for the nerve agent attack on a former spy living in the United Kingdom. The move marks one of Trump's most dramatic gestures against Russia, and comes just a week after Trump congratulated Russian President Vladimir Putin on his re-election despite reportedly being urged by aides not to do so. On a conference call with reporters, a senior administration official said all 60 of the expelled officials are in the U.S. posting as diplomats, 48 at the Russian embassy and 12 at the Russian mission to the United Nations. They and their families will have 7 days to leave the U.S. Russian ambassador to the U.S. Anatoly Antonov was called into the State Department Monday morning to be informed of the expulsions. The administration official said Monday that we do not act alone, adding that the steps announced by the Trump administration would be taken in coordination with more than a dozen allies in Europe and beyond. Germany and France announced Monday that they would expel 4 Russian diplomats each, according to the German press agency and Reuters, while the Associated Press reported that Poland and Lithuania will also expel Russian diplomats. All told, European Council President Donald Tusk announced on Twitter that 14 European Union nations would expel Russian diplomats in response to the attempted murder. An official on the call said Trump was involved from the beginning in the decision to expel the Russian intelligence officials and close the Seattle consulate, and that he personally made the call to take the steps announced Monday. That official said Trump has not spoken to Putin since last Tuesday, when the White House said the two did not discuss the attempted murder of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter with a banned nerve agent in the UK earlier this month. The Russian government has shown malicious contempt for the sovereignty and security of countries worldwide, an administration official said. It has repeatedly sought to subvert and discredit Western institutions. These efforts are ongoing. Today, we stand in solidarity with America's closest ally, the United Kingdom. To the Russian government, we say when you attack our friends, you will face serious consequences. While British Prime Minister Theresa May moved quickly to denounce Russia as the culprit behind Skripal's attempted murder, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders was initially hesitant to lay blame for the attack on the Kremlin. Within days, the White House formally adopted the position of the British government, although Trump's refusal to raise the attack during his phone call with Putin further fueled criticism that his foreign policy towards Russia has been decidedly soft, especially relative to his get-tough approach elsewhere around the globe. While the expulsion of the Russian diplomats and closure of the Seattle consulate were ordered in part as specific retaliation for the Kremlin's alleged involvement in Skripal's attempted murder, an official added that the steps were also part of a holistic look at the Russian government's collection capabilities here in the U.S. The expulsions, another official said, remove a large number of the unacceptably numerous Russian intelligence officers who abide in the United States. The Russian intelligence officers being expelled, one administration official on the conference call said, are considered to be aggressive collection personnel here in the U.S. It is the second time within the past 12 months that the Trump administration has moved to close Russian diplomatic facilities, having already ordered last August the shutdown of Russia's San Francisco consulate, as well as a chancery annex in Washington and a consular annex in New York. Monday's move leaves the Kremlin with just 2 consulates in the U.S., one in Houston and one in New York, in addition to its Washington embassy. In taking this step, we assess the Russian consulate in Seattle to be part of this broader problem of an unacceptably number of Russian intelligence operatives in the United States, an administration official on Monday morning's call said. We think it sends a very clear signal, particularly since on the West Coast, the Russians will now have a degraded capability with regards to spying on our citizens. Daniel Liebman contributed to this report. Trump moves to ban most transgender troops. President Donald Trump on Friday issued orders to ban transgender troops who require surgery or significant medical treatment from serving in the military except in select cases, following through on a controversial pledge last year that has been under review by the Pentagon and is being fought out in the courts. The memorandum, which drew swift condemnation from gender rights groups, states that while the Secretary of Defense and other executive branch officials will have some latitude in implementing the policy, persons with a history or diagnosis of gender dysphoria, including individuals who the policies state may require substantial medical treatment, including medications and surgery, are disqualified from military service except under limited circumstances. The memo also said that Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, in the exercise of his independent judgment, has concluded the policies should be adopted by the Department of Defense. It added that the Secretary of Homeland Security concurs with these policies with respect to the U.S. Coast Guard, which would also be affected by the policy. The decision comes after a number of top military officials over the past year, including most members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have gone out of their way to defend the thousands of transgender troops who are believed to be serving in the military. But in a subsequent statement, the White House press office on Friday explained that the policy was developed through extensive study by senior uniformed and civilian leaders, including combat veterans. The experts' study sets forth a policy to enhance our military's readiness, lethality, and effectiveness, it continued, adding that officials concluded that the accession or retention of individuals with a history or diagnosis of gender dysphoria, those who may require substantial medical treatment, including through medical drugs or surgery, presents considerable risk to military effectiveness and lethality. This new policy, the White House statement added, will enable the military to apply well-established mental and physical health standards, including those regarding the use of medical drugs, equally to all individuals who want to join and fight for the best military force the world has ever seen. LGBT advocates who have sought to head off such a move in the courts swiftly slammed the decision, calling it appalling, reckless and unpatriotic. Donald Trump and Mike Pence are literally wreaking havoc on the lives of our military families, said Ashley Bordway-Mack, president of the American Military Partner Association. This unconscionable attack on our military families cannot stand, we refuse to allow it. Matt Thorne, president of Outserve SLDN, said, this policy is a thinly veiled and feeble attempt by the Trump-Pence administration to justify the unnecessary discrimination of qualified patriots in order to advance their own personal agendas and in defiance of the administration's top military leadership. We are calling this what it is, an attempt to legitimize an unwarranted and unnecessary attack that targets individuals who have volunteered their lives in support of this country. This Trump-Pence plan categorically bans transgender people from service, with no legitimate basis, added Jennifer Levi, Transgender Right Project Director for GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders, in a statement. It requires the discharge of trained, skilled troops who have served honorably for decades. It's a gross mischaracterization of transgender people, and it's bad for our military. The news also prompted concern on Capitol Hill. Representative Jimmy Bonetta, a Democrat from California and member of the House Armed Services Committee, said in a statement that the ban, which implements the same policy that was blocked by several courts, runs counter to the American values that our troops are fighting to protect. The ban on transgender troops was lifted in June 2016 when then Defense Secretary Ash Carter permitted those already in uniform to begin serving openly and ordered the military branches to begin preparing to accept new recruits by July 1, 2017. A 2016 study conducted by the government-funded RAND Corporation for the Pentagon estimated that nearly 4,000 transgender troops were serving on active duty and in the reserves. Military LGBT advocacy groups put the estimate much higher, at around 15,000. After taking office in early 2017, Mattis in June delayed the deadline for accepting new recruits another 6 months, just before President Donald Trump declared in a surprise tweet in July that transgender individuals would no longer be able to serve in the military in any capacity. The White House followed the tweet with formal guidance in August, directing the Pentagon to develop a plan to bar transgender individuals from serving and end government-funded sex reassignment surgeries for troops, except to protect the health of a service member who had already begun transition. Mattis announced shortly after receiving the memo that transgender troops could continue serving while the Pentagon studied the issue. Since then, at least one transgender service member underwent sex reassignment surgery. Trump's efforts have faced a number of serious setbacks, including multiple lawsuits arguing that banning a group of people from the military on the basis of their gender identity is unconstitutional. 4 federal courts have already issued preliminary injunctions in cases filed by GLBTQ legal advocates and defenders and the National Center for Lesbian Rights in Washington, D.C., the American Civil Liberties Union and Covington and Burling LLP in Maryland, Lambda Legal and Outserve SLDN in Washington, and Equality California in California. Under the court rulings, the Pentagon was required to begin accepting transgender recruits on January 1, and has reportedly accepted at least one transgender recruit so far this year. Friday's announcement does not change current regulations because the Pentagon is abiding by the court rulings. The Department of Defense will continue to comply with the federal court ruling and continue to assess and retain transgender service members, said Major Davy Sporn, a Pentagon spokesman. As those cases proceed, many expect the issue to end up before the U.S. Supreme Court. Indeed, Trump's Justice Department vowed after the announcement to continue fighting to defend DoD's lawful authority to create and implement personnel policies they have determined are necessary to best defend our nation. We are asking the courts to lift all related preliminary injunctions in order to ensure the safety and security of the American people and the best fighting force in the world, the statement added. The pushback, however, is now likely to just pick up even more steam. We ought to provide the opportunity to everyone to be able to serve this country in uniform, Leon Panetta, who served as Secretary of Defense before Carter, told Politico on Friday. They are there, serving their country and serving it well. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to throw people out of the service who are doing a good job. He disputed the argument that accommodating transgender men and women in uniform is too much of a burden. We went through that with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, he said of the decision in 2011 to allow gays to serve openly. We worked through it with issues of race. We worked through it with women. We have always found a way. And in the end, people have been able to serve their country, and that is what counts. The Democratic National Committee also weighed in late Friday, calling the decision an insult to our brave transgender service members and all who wear our nation's uniform, adding that discrimination is not a national security strategy. Trump friend Ruddy says 1 or 2 major changes coming. Newsmax CEO Christopher Ruddy, a close friend and ally of President Donald Trump, said Sunday the president was planning on making 1 or 2 major changes to his administration. The president told me he's perplexed by all of these reports, that there's chaos at the White House, more mass staff changes, Ruddy said on ABC's This Week. He told me that he thinks the White House is operating like a smooth machine, in his words. Ruddy added, he did say that he's expecting to make 1 or 2 major changes to his government very soon, and that's going to be it. The departures of Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin, Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly and others have all been rumored. In recent weeks, Trump chose CIA Director Mike Pompeo to replace Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and he replaced Economic Advisor Gary Cohn with Larry Kudlow and National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster with former Bush administration official John Bolton. Attorney John Dowd also stepped down.